Now, let's move on to something else. We had the governor saying, from the start that he was against using the rainy day fund.
Right.
And then one of his aides last week told your committee that it wasn't off the table. And then over the weekend and then Monday, we didn't get to see him in the committee. What was happening behind the scenes and what was taking so long?
Well, in my opinion, what was happening behind the scenes is that we were talking with the governor's office and we were discussing what their remedy was for our issues out there. And we finally arrived, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the controller, we finally arrived at a deal that we thought we could come in and use $3.2 billion out of the rainy day fund, pay this year's bills. We can do that in concert with how the rainy day fund was established. We've got plenty of money for that. Keep the cuts in place, and let's move forward. And we have an additional $4.3 billion to spend on nursing homes, on caseload, on schools, on colleges, and we will do that. So the economy of Texas is going to do just fine, and anybody who wants to pay more taxes, I got the list of states that charge more taxes than we do, and some of them that's raised their taxes. I don't think you ought to raise taxes in tough economic times.
What do you think was happening?
I think what was happening is they're willing to use the rainy day fund to save their political careers and save themselves from embarrassment of not paying their bills this year. But they're unwilling to use the rainy day fund to save our schools and our seniors' nursing homes.
Was it a political move on anyone's part?
Absolutely not. Some nursing homes won't make it. That's an absolute fact. But that's not the reason for government to be here. We're here to have a tax system and a system that benefits the people. And there's many people in nursing homes, but there's also a significant number of people out there that actually do not have a job. There's businessmen out there that are just struggling to get by, and to raise taxes on them in these tough economic times is just not the right thing to do.
See, but we're not talking about raising taxes. We're talking about using the rainy day fund. The rainy day fund is a fund that exists today. It is estimated to have $9.3 billion in it. And my colleagues are willing to use it to avoid embarrassing themselves and saving their political careers, but they're not willing to use that fund in order to save our schools and our seniors' nursing homes. And that is irresponsible.
Is anyone going to try to bring up using the rainy day fund in the next budget?
Not me.
I believe the Senate will.
Really?
Yes. I mean, what's interesting is that this press release that came out from the governor's office and the speaker's office and the comptroller's office was interesting because the lieutenant governor was missing. And if you read more closely, the governor didn't say he would veto a bill that uses the rest of the rainy day fund. So I'm afraid, they're just playing games with us, and we really need to roll up our sleeves and get down to work of passing a responsible budget that covers the basic public necessities like educating our children.
We have had several teacher rallies lately when you're talking about children and students, and you have been quite a face with that. Do you hear anything specifically from teachers? I know they've been talking about using the rainy day fund.
Oh, absolutely. Anybody who's concerned about the future of this state, about our children's education, says, number one, use the rainy day fund. But they go on and say, stabilize your finances. Make sure that your expenses are matching your revenue. And if your tax code is leaking because of tax breaks and loopholes, then plug them. And I think that would be the most responsible thing to do. I think a balanced approach is making cuts, using the rainy day fund, and plugging the leaks in our tax code. There are too many loopholes that, in the end, cost us billions of dollars and treat one taxpayer differently than another.
What do you tell those teachers that do say use the rainy day fund?
Listen, there's a number of people who draw money strictly from the state always want more money. So it's nothing new out there. We're not advocating that they let any teachers go, but do you realize that the public education system in Texas is the 5th largest employer in the world? 5th largest employer in the world. It's not just teachers. They got somebody for every teacher in the public school system. They got twice as many people as they have teachers.
That's not
and
accurate.
It's a system. It is. I'm talking about what They report, it's in Google if you want to look it up. There's twice as many people in the education system as there is teachers. That's what's killing our education system, not teachers.
What about the governor? I mean, he's pretty much blamed school districts in a recent press conference that they might be to blame for all this overhiring.
Nobody's buying that the decisions made in Austin are not related to the decisions that school districts are being forced to make at the local level. Nobody's buying that. It's just not true. You know, when you shortchange our education system at the state by 25%, after our schools have already gone through many rounds of cuts because we have been every year consistently undercutting them, it's of course a logical conclusion to make that the state legislature and the governor are responsible for teachers being laid off. And you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. We can do better. We can take a balanced approach. You know, nobody's saying that there shouldn't be cuts. There should be. We should cut programs that aren't achieving their original goals, that are inefficient, but we also need to use the rainy day fund, and we need to plug the holes in our tax code that are being leaked out by tax loopholes and exemptions going to special interests.
What do you say to people like Representative Hochberg who say $2 billion is only going to do so much? We have another $8 billion in cuts to make.
Well, we do have cuts to make, but I'm telling you, it's a system that has got out of hand. It's a system that has far too many employees in it that are not teaching. We are to be about teaching the children in the classroom and not just providing jobs for people across the state.
Now, a lot of your colleagues say that you are responsible for convincing Speaker Strauss and Chairman Pitts to refund those 4 community colleges that were in danger of closing.
Absolutely. I hope I am, because I don't want to close one community college in the state of Texas. One of them was in my district, but 3 of them weren't in my district. And the bottom line is those community colleges are funded by local taxpayers. The state only pays for those that earn credit hours to them. It is irresponsible to go out there and close community colleges when we don't have a college within 200 miles of there that could get the same, that could train those kids coming out of those schools.
Do you think that that was a smart move to put that money toward those community colleges?
I think when it's in your own backyard, it's hard to advocate for cuts.
What about when this all hits the Senate? Are they going to go for
And
it?
so I congratulate my colleague, Mr. Chisum, in fighting to preserve his community college. I want the same for all of our schools, community colleges, public schools, and our universities. You know, we need to be smart about this, and I do agree. I mean, you're right for standing up for your community college. You know that if we don't invest in these young people, we're not going to have a stronger economy. We need to apply that formula, that recipe for growth across the board. In the end, Texas is not going to be more prosperous if we fail to educate our children.
What about when it does hit the Senate? I mean, we're talking about all these great things that the Appropriations Committee may or may not be able to do here in the House, but is the Senate going to go for all this?
Yeah, you know, it's always a tug of war. The 4 community colleges are in the Senate budget side, so it's not an issue about those. But we won't agree with the Senate on everything, but that's what the conference committee is for. And you know, once the bills are passed, we'll go in there and negotiate our differences. And the Senate has different ideas. We'll work those out.
I think the end game is going to be decided in conference committee, and the Senate is going to have a big say because they're proposing a budget that is less severe. It cuts less deeply in education and in health and human services, and so if advocates are concerned about these cuts, they need to go talk to their state senators and back them up and advocate that they do the right thing.